Hi everyone. Appreciate you all being here. I don't have AI in the title of my talk. Lesson learned for next time. So, but yeah, hope it will be of interest. As Emma said, my name's Stephen. I work for Open Ownership. We're a non-profit focused on beneficial ownership transparency. So I'm going to explain a little bit about what we do, why it's important, and the work that we've done in this space. And if anyone has any questions or wants to talk, I'll be around afterwards. So it'd be great to talk to you. So, first of all, beneficial ownership. The problem that we're trying to solve is that people do not know who owns and controls companies, or who owns and controls or has property. Today, later on this afternoon, there's going to be a debate about this in Parliament. And I just wanted to illustrate a couple of examples that have come out in the last 2 weeks. People might be aware of some of these, but I just wanted to illustrate some of the problems we can see. A week or so ago, it was reported that Roman Abramovich has set up a series of British Virgin Island companies linked to Cyprus trusts, which looks something like this, that then allows him to avoid a huge amount of tax, possibly up to £1 billion, depending on how you work it out and how much interest he'd maybe pay. So what you're seeing here is apologies for people at the back who might not be able to make it out, but it's a whole number of British Virgin Island companies at the bottom, which are linked to trusts in Cyprus, which then link back to Roman Abramovich. So this is based on reporting that's come out. This happens all over the world. People hide whether they own and control things, and it's very, very difficult for people to actually go through different countries and to find out who's behind the scenes of things like this. Another example that happened recently, in the second biggest property deal probably in British history, a huge mansion in Regent's Park, has been bought by a mysterious US tech billionaire. We still don't know who it is. So the Saudi royal family have sold it to him. And I assume it's to him. Apologies for making that assumption, but they all tend to be. Yeah, we have no idea because it turns out that a Luxembourg-based company is listed as the owner of it on the UK's register of people called the Register of Overseas Entities. And so we still don't actually know who that is. And there's someone has bought for about £140 million, one of the largest properties in the centre of London. The government has tried to pass things to get at this, but they haven't managed to do so far. So this is a global issue. It happens all over the place. And just to give you one example this is from the One campaign, there's an estimate of about $1 trillion USD that's estimated to leave developing countries each year in lost tax revenues because of shell companies that people register that don't reveal who owns them. So what do we do about that? We focus on beneficial ownership transparency, so helping people to get back to the names of the real people behind these companies, and in some cases to help identify people who own property or yachts or houses or things like that. In the vast majority of cases, when you start looking at the data around this, it's straightforward. It's usually people owning companies. And for 80–90% of all companies, let's say in the UK, this is what they look like when you start looking at the data. It's not complicated, but it's it's that 10% of people who are more interesting and that you need to look at closer. So what we tend to see in a lot of the stories that come out, like I was illustrating earlier on with Roman Abramovich, is something like this. So you have a person that is linked to a trust. That trust then owns companies. Those companies then own another company. And without better quality information and data and things that you can link up between different countries, it's very difficult to get back to that person, that beneficial owner. This is a real-life example that we've got written up on our website. So if you want to find anything about what we're talking about today, openownership.org is the site for what we work on. This is an example linking back a company here. Is a UK-based company that turned out to be the owner, or at least on paper, the owner of some of the materials that blew up in Beirut a few years ago. And so then investigators were able to go back and find a huge range of registered companies with Companies House in the UK that then link back to a number of people. This involves multiple jurisdictions and a huge problem of finding out from that company that owned these chemicals how you could get back to someone who'd be responsible for a gigantic explosion in the middle of Beirut. So we try to help people work that out. My team's based all over the world. We've worked with about 40 governments, and what we are trying to help people to do is, we say beneficial ownership transparency, and that doesn't necessarily mean all the data is transparent and open and everything, but it just means you can actually find out who the people are behind these companies, who the people are behind trusts, and we support people in a range of ways to do that. We help them with everything through from their laws, through to the open standard that we've published, which is what I look after and which I'm going to go on to talk about, and that's why I'm mainly here today. So the challenge we have is that beneficial ownership information, or information about the ownership, lives in lots of different places. So a lot of countries have set up beneficial ownership registers in the last few years. It's a huge rising number. So since the UK and Ukraine set up the first ones in 2014, 2015, it's really shot up. But what you realize in this space is that actually a lot of the information that you need is on other places. It's on company registers, it's in shareholder registers, it's in trust registers. People are declared as nominees in different places. Public companies produce things and they publish stuff on stock exchanges, and then that means they don't have the full data. And also, maybe it's just in a PDF somewhere that they've published on their website, or it's in investigative journalism. So the standard that we have produced and we've worked on for the last 7 years allows you to take all of this ownership information, standardize it, and pull it together in the hope that you're better able to link data and exchange data across jurisdictions, that you're able to follow some of those chains. So it's called the Beneficial Ownership Data Standard. For people who are interested in it, you can go to standard.openownership.org. It's developed by the same team as actually someone who's talking later on. There's the Open Fiber Data Standard is being talked about later on this afternoon. So the team who work with me on developing this standard are the same people who are behind that standard as well. So a very experienced team based in the UK. So the standard is available now. We're on to our 5th iteration of it, and it's available for everyone to use, and it allows you to generate data or to structure the data that's available on companies, trusts, and the people who are involved in there, so that you can capture all those different types of relationships, no matter how complicated they are, no matter how simple they are. So we're working with a huge number of countries to get this adopted in more places. We do lots of work here in the UK with authorities, but we're also doing work with the likes of Armenia, Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, Chile, Latvia, lots and lots of different countries all over the world to drive this so that we can have information that's easier to exchange. We're the official open standard for the UK government, so if anyone wants to go to gov.uk, I've shared, by the way, these slides are on the Shed page, so if you want to get them, you can get them, and they've got all the links in it. Yeah, we are the official standard for the UK government, so you can see the reasons they've got for endorsing our standard and for encouraging other governments to use that. So their endorsement is why the government of Canada is working with us, and it's also why the government of Australia are interested in working with us. So I'm hoping that you'll see a lot more usage of this in some of these spaces in the coming months and years. So the point of my talk and the key thing was about the value of this, like how having more of this better quality data would help, especially in the UK. There's a huge focus at the moment on fighting economic crime. Why would doing more in this space help? So there's a team at the moment called the Centre for Finance, Innovation and Technology, or CFIT, who are doing a lot of work on the value of company IDs. So lots of things, I don't know where everyone works from here, but if people are interested in verified credentials, digital ID, company wallets, digital wallets, then there's a huge amount of work and a report that came out from CFIT back last October that talked about the fact that they think about £600 million a year of benefits could be realised with better, secure digital identifiers. And the UK government has also estimated that about £3 billion of fraud losses could be mitigated between 2024 and 2030 if there were these better verification solutions. Now, when you see something like this, there's obviously the technical part of the company ID and the digital wallet in the middle, but the big part that, sorry if you can't read this from the back, but is ringed there, is basically says who is the company connected to, who are the directors and people with significant control, which PSC is what the UK calls most beneficial owners. who is the ultimate beneficial owner, UBO? Who has the authority to act on behalf of the company? And what other indicators of financial crime are there for this company? So with all efforts like this, and I know there's some other sessions on this today, the big stumbling block, the massive amount of friction that happens at the moment is getting that data on the people who are behind the companies. The actual data on the companies themselves is becoming more and more open, more and more available, but there's a real bottleneck when it comes to having that information, and we think that having more of it in line with a standard such as ours would allow people to realise some of those gains that have been estimated by CFIT and by others. There's also been reports on this from Companies House, the Companies House being the UK company registrar. They're responsible for the UK's beneficial ownership registers, so there's two of them. There's the People with Significant Control Register that was first created in 2016, and there's the Register of Overseas Entities, which was created in 2022 following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. They produced this report last year on the value of corporate transparency in tackling crime. And again, sorry, I didn't realise how far back people would be. I thought the room was going to be a lot smaller. This breaks down the value of having better quality data coming from Companies House. This is a report they put out a couple of months ago, and basically they realised that for the public sector and lots of other private sector users, there's a lot of value in Companies House data at the moment, but that they're estimating that that would double if they verified all the people and if they verified all the companies that are appearing in their data. So just pulling out a quote from that report on the side, it says, public sector users expect the requirement for identity verification will be the most valuable aspect of their reforms, in particular for the identity of individuals who own or control companies. So there's a really strong use case. Companies House is going through a process in the next year and a half. They're going to start unveiling this in May to verify all the users on their platform. It'll take them a long time. It'll take them till at least 2026, 27. And you'll have a period of time where there's unverified data and verified data sitting side by side. But this is coming, and they think that the value of that data doubles based on this report and based on their estimates if they do more to verify it. So what else would be, just as I'm coming to the end because we have to keep everything very on time, other reasons why having more of this data would be useful. So I'm just going to pick out a few examples here, some that I've worked on with my team and some that are notable and have happened recently. Might have got a bit buried by now, but just before Donald Trump was elected, Elon Musk was charged by the Securities and Exchange Commission in the US with violating beneficial ownership rules because he didn't admit he was buying up lots of Twitter stock until it was too late. And they estimate he saved himself about $150 million by doing that because people didn't realize that the world's richest man had accumulated so many shares in Twitter that he should have really declared it. But it doesn't matter because he's just going to pay the fine. So again, an example where having some more of this information would have helped to identify things. We have done work with an organisation called the Global Energy Monitor Team. So they actually use our data standard. They follow and publish their data in line with our standard. And what that's helped them to do is to link work being done at various sites related to energy and oil and gas around the world back to the parent companies. And then they have taken that and used it to estimate, for some of these large companies, how much are they avoiding in terms of emissions? How much are they in terms of emissions reporting? So this is a report they put out in November all about how these large companies are, again, committing violations based on what they should be disclosing. And the last one, which is a piece of work that was published last year, takes two of the data sets my team helped to publish for Denmark and Slovakia and uses it to try and establish whether you can spot risks relating to the people who own companies when they're involved in public procurement. So this is a really key use case for people all over the world to spot if politicians, people who are politically exposed are involved or tend to win more contracts than other people. Again, sadly, with some of the things in the way the world's going, this is probably going to become an even bigger problem. The good thing was for us that this team found that having better quality beneficial ownership data did help to spot those kind of risks. They looked at that across 6 European countries. And again, all of the links to all of that are published on there. So I'm running out of time, but if you have any questions about our standard or the work or anything, please come and find me, or all the links to what I was talking about are in the presentation that's on schedule. Okay.
Actually, if anybody has a question, we've probably got time for one, so show your hand if you'd like to ask Stephen anything. Sammy.
Very interesting talk. I'm just curious about typically companies that try to hide, they have shell companies in jurisdictions that are not willing to disclose any of that information. So I can see that having a standard will help resolve. But how do we get players who are not willing to engage to disclose the information or the data that they hold?
Yeah, that's a huge problem. So my team does do work on that advocacy side of things. So we're working at the moment with the British Virgin Islands are consulting on how people can access their register. Lots of people are dragging their feet. Some of those countries are being punished by the likes of the Financial Action Task Force and being forced to change. But that is a huge issue, and lots of people are moving. Yeah, they need more government pressure, they need more punishments, they need more things to really make them change, because that's unfortunately not been happening to date. The European Union is pushing through its EU AML package over the next couple of years, which asks people like Cyprus and Malta and others to do better. I can say that some of the ways we're addressing that is Bermuda is rated as the third worst tax haven in the world. I've worked with the technology team that provide the software for the Bermuda company registrar, and so their data will be structured in line with our data standard once that register is released, hopefully around June of 2025. Fingers crossed. It's just then a question of who can ever access that information and whether the UK government forces them to be more transparent about it. But yeah, that is a huge problem, and there's a constant battle around this.